You're a young woman in a peaceful farming village somewhere in Central Asia. The year is 1220. Sunlight glimmers off your simple clay roof as you grind grain outside your home, your hands callous but steady. Then you hear it. A rumble, low, distant, yet insistent. Thunder? But the sky is clear. Squinting toward the horizon, you see it, a dark line creeping across the plains like spilled ink, thousands of horsemen moving as one unstoppable wave. Within hours, everything you've ever known, your home, your family, your world, will vanish. The name Genghis Khan is whispered across the steppes, a name that conjures images of conquest, empire, and military genius. But what history sometimes hides is darker. Behind the legend lies a systematic terror that few dare to recount, a terror that turns human life into a resource, and sexuality into a weapon. Would you have run? Would you have hidden? Or would you have felt the chilling certainty that survival might demand your body, your family, and even your future as a tool in someone else's ambition? When conquest becomes calculation, humanity itself becomes currency. The Mongol Empire was unlike any the world had seen. Genghis Khan united the nomadic tribes of the steppe into a military machine of terrifying precision. Cities fell not just to swords and arrows, but to fear amplified through the careful manipulation of life itself. Captured populations were not merely spoils of war. They were resources, catalogued and distributed with meticulous care. Warriors, commanders, and even the Khan himself were allocated human assets, based on reproductive potential, beauty, and genetic value. Entire families were tracked, their lineage recorded, their future assigned before a single arrow was loosed. The Mongols understood, in ways centuries ahead of modern science, that controlling reproduction meant controlling generations. When Mongol envoys arrived at a city, they offered a choice: total submission or total annihilation. To many, annihilation meant more than death. It meant separation, erasure, and the transformation of entire populations into instruments of the empire. Families were categorized, men into forced labor or execution, women into breeding programs, children into systems designed to mold them into future soldiers, administrators, or expendable commodities. Young women of childbearing age were singled out, assessed for genetic value, and assigned to warriors according to strict hierarchies. The most desirable were reserved for the Khan himself. But this was not chaos, it was bureaucracy. Detailed records tracked each pregnancy, each birth, each child's potential. The Mongols understood psychology. Traumatized women produced fewer children. So, survivors were housed in conditions that broke resistance without endangering fertility. Isolation, forced conversion, and the erasure of names and identities made escape impossible. Maternal bonds were weaponized. Children were leveraged to ensure continued compliance. Children were not left to chance. Those showing Mongol traits were assimilated, trained, and integrated into the empire. Those resembling their mother's ethnicity could be sold, enslaved, or executed. A single child could hold the fate of an entire mother in their fragile hands. These programs were not localized. Mobile breeding facilities moved with armies. Administrators monitored health, reproduction, and genetics with precision. Captured women became both prisoners and instruments of expansion. Entire societies were reshaped according to the Khan's vision, leaving scars on populations that lasted centuries. The Mongols weaponized more than armies. They weaponized trust, culture, and human bonds. Silence, fear, and obedience ensured the survival of their conquests. This echoes in modern contexts. Regimes that exploit reproductive control, psychological manipulation, or forced servitude all share the same underlying principle: control over life is the ultimate power. Even today, psychological research confirms the lasting impact of trauma on generations, showing that violence and coercion leave a mark far beyond the battlefield. When control becomes a system, survival becomes complicit. Genghis Khan's empire did not just conquer land, it redefined what it meant to own life. Humanity became both weapon and resource, mothers became tools, children became instruments, and entire cultures were reshaped by calculated terror. Persian chronicler Juvani recorded how whole populations vanished into these systems, never to return to their families. Archaeological evidence confirms mass graves, malnutrition, and signs of systemic violence. Historian Thomas also notes, Mongol expansion relied on the control of human life itself. Their policies toward women and children demonstrate a terrifying awareness of generational impact, far beyond military strategy. Genetic studies show that millions today carry Y chromosome markers tracing back to Genghis Khan's lineage, evidence of conquest not just by sword, but by systematic reproduction. History remembers empires. But what of the silenced lives that built them? This story is a reminder. Power often comes at unimaginable costs. Civilizations remember kings and armies, but the human suffering behind their triumphs is often buried. Humanity cannot be reduced to strategy without leaving echoes that resonate through generations.